Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Fluently Forward. Hot off of the presses, we are going to be talking about the new lawsuit that has come out where Blake Lively is suing Justin Baldoni and a bunch of other people too, including his PR firm, for sexual harassment and slander, basically kind of trying to purposely damage her reputation. Some people online are saying it ends with us in court. So not only is this lawsuit, by the way, it's 80 pages, so I'm going to be breaking it all down for you today, but there is shit to back it up. There is textual evidence for the sexual harassment, basically. Evidence of, or I'm not going to say evidence, I'm going to say allegations, but, it seems like it's evidence of Justin Baldoni just being this, there's no way to beat around the bush, huge piece of shit and incredibly misogynistic. And it's both so incredibly disheartening, but also kind of so sickly sweet. What is it about that type of feminist man where I'm sorry, I know you're trying to do a good thing. There's something about, I don't know how to describe it. It just makes you want to scream and kill someone for parody use. The way that James Franco is wearing the fucking Me Too ribbon or pin or whatever, how Aziz Ansari is doing that too. And how Justin Baldoni has the fucking nerve to have the Man Enough podcast where he talks about being an ally to women. And it's not enough to be an ally. You need to stop locker room talk right in its tracks and blah, blah, blah. And we have 80 pages of him being a little bit of a deviant pervert, and that's putting it mildly, allegedly, on the It Ends With Us set. So before we get into all of this, I just kind of want to spill some tea that I've gotten from both Justin and Blake because, a couple months ago when all of this was going on, I did an episode all about the It Ends With Us drama. And thankfully, I was kind of on the right side of history. Not totally backing up Blake because she did, let's be so honest, she did a really weird job of promoting this movie on the red carpet and being so skittish about anything to do with domestic violence, but also saying, it's kind of a sign that everybody unfollowed Justin Baldoni. And it's especially weird how Blake was being on the red carpet because she has a past of, partnering with Child Rescue Coalition and speaking out for them. And her and Ryan donate $1 million to children in Gaza, $1 million to food banks. Whenever anything happens, they're there with $1 million check right away. So yeah, Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are a little bit of a chuggy, annoying Hollywood couple, but it didn't seem like they were actively malicious. But who knows, right? Everybody was just kind of saying, is Blake Lively, this is her downfall. Remember that Swedish reporter had a video of her being a complete bitch in one of the interviews, and this whole, weave started to be spun, and now we know it was spun on purpose and it was paid for. So let me just start with the two things that I've heard after I put out this episode, people that reached in. Two incredible sources. One source for Blake Lively, it's a friend of mine, and I don't want to spill anything too crazy, but she was at a bar and she talked to someone who worked on Gossip Girl. Not one of the main people, but a family member of one of the main people, someone who played their dad or mom. I'm going to keep it vague. And that person said that Blake Lively was in fact impossible to work with. Nobody liked working with her. It was just a miserable experience. She was really hard to be around. So I was like, okay, interesting. This reporter has the, bad interview with Blake come out. This person from Gossip Girl is saying that she's a little bit of a nightmare. I believe it. Like I say, when in doubt, if I'm looking at any celebrity in Hollywood, I assume that they are bisexual, doing drugs, and probably a little bit of a narcissistic piece of shit. That's just kind of the baseline. And then people can prove you wrong or right in either direction, but that's just kind of the baseline for a celebrity. Now, I also know someone who works deeply entrenched in Hollywood, and she was telling me, this was when all of this was going on, she was saying, be careful what you say about Justin Baldoni. He's a misogynistic piece of shit, total creep. Everyone hates him. And I remember messaging her and being like, oh my God, really? Part of me kind of thought maybe because any guy who steers way too much into themselves calling themselves a feminist ally. It's like, calm down. Women get to call you that. You don't get to call it to yourself. You know what I mean? Anyway, and I just remember her message and being like, that would be huge if it ever came out that Justin Baldoni is in fact a misogynistic piece of shit. And, check the date and the time. We're now in that timeline and it's all coming out. So I'm also interested to get into this episode because there is a really cool and fascinating conspiracy angle to all of this as well. So, I'm, eating it up. The things that we get about Justin Baldoni's PR team and just how they use social media and different news outlets to try to take down someone's reputation. We have the money numbers on what it costs to retain someone like this. We have the ways that they do it on Reddit. We have names of the firms that they use, and it just is fascinating. Oh, I'm so excited. Okay. Sounds horrible to be excited about something like this, but let's get into it. Okay. So the first thing I want to say is that when this news came out a couple days ago that Blake Lively was suing Justin Baldoni and all of these people, a lot of people online were saying, oh my God, like this is really heinous stuff that she's saying. Why didn't she lead with all of this before? Like we would have been on her side. Come on now. She couldn't have led with it. What do you think? They're doing promo for the movie and she's going to lead with the fact about how Justin did XYZ to her on set? Nobody's going to see the movie. It's going to feel like a slap in the face to women everywhere if you go and buy a ticket and support the movie done by this man who apparently, like I said, was a bit of a deviant pervert on set. So I find that really interesting and kind of, I don't know, maybe she was trying to be the bigger person. Maybe she was trying to help out Colleen Hoover. Maybe she just knew that if she said this on set, or, if she said what happened on set during the promotion of the movie and then the movie tanked, maybe no one in Hollywood would ever want to work with her again. So I think she sat on this on purpose and it was probably eating her up inside to watch everybody love Justin Baldoni and hate her, but she had to zip it until enough people bought tickets for the movie. So I feel like nowadays, I was going through some of my old TikToks that I made on this situation back when it happened, I believe in the summer, and a lot of comments on my TikTok, they were all bots. No, they were people saying, I feel like they're doing this on purpose. I feel like they're trying to drum up PR for the movie to get people to go and see it. And it is interesting because with Don't Worry, Darling, there was so much drama beforehand, even with Wicked and, Ariana Grande and Ethan Slater, because we live in a time where things get spread through social media and blind items and gossip and all of this stuff. It is kind of the norm for there to be a little bit of a PR shitstorm before a movie comes out. And now it makes people think, are they doing it on purpose? But I still do think most movies try to keep things buttoned up until you've already paid for your ticket and a few months have gone by. So I think the Don't Worry, Darling, the Wicked, the It Ends With Us, these things came out and I don't think the movie wanted them to. The whole reason everybody was suspicious about It Ends With Us is because that one person on TikTok made a video saying, I've noticed that Justin is doing all of his PR separately from everyone else. And then I checked on Instagram and none of them follow him. They all unfollowed him. And that was what started all of the speculation. That was what made Justin hire his PR team, freak the fuck out. It was because of sleuths on TikTok speculating and putting it together. So point one for us social media speculators, my God, we were kind of on the money, isn't it? Okay, so let's get on into this 80-page lawsuit. I am here to break it down for you. Who is Blake Lively suing? Yes, she's suing Justin Baldoni. She's also suing his PR firm. He hired the same PR firm as Johnny Depp, and she's suing a few individuals as well, which we're going to get into. What is she suing him for? Sexual harassment, emotional distress, the PR firm for slandering her reputation, just a laundry list of different things. So what we learn when we first dive into this lawsuit is that halfway through filming, it ends with us. There was an all hands meeting. There was a little bit of chatter about how there was some turbulent filming, there was a break, and then they started filming again. Well, that break was because there was an all hands meeting put forth by Blake Lively to discuss sexual harassment that was happening on set. Everybody came, Justin came, everyone on his team. Blake came, she was able to have a representative at that meeting, and she chose Ryan Reynolds. Now, there were all of these reports that Ryan Reynolds was on set, every single day. He was coming, and, just hanging around set. And a lot of people were saying, it's giving overbearing husband. It's giving he's jealous and doesn't want her out of his sight. I even thought that too, because there's so many blind items about how Ryan Reynolds for years has this history of Blake Lively not wanting her to be working, but wanting her to be like at home, barefoot in the kitchen with the 4 kids, etc. So I'm going to put my hand up and say, I, Shannon McNamara, was a victim. A victim, or just a mind-controlled idiot, because the propaganda is every single person is at the receiving end of it. And I thought it was really weird how Ryan Reynolds was on set every day for a movie that he wasn't involved in. Well, now it seems like it's a little bit, makes more sense. If she is feeling dangerous on set, her husband's coming with her to set every day to be that kind of man protection vibes or something like that. So we get into this all hands meeting, and we find out that one of the people that Blake Lively had issues with, of course, it's Justin Baldoni, but there's also someone named Jamie Heath. And he is the CEO of Wayfarer. And they're a studio. They did It Ends With Us. They also run his Man Enough podcast and shit like that. And Jamie Heath was a producer on the film. And he also was allegedly a deviant pervert on set. So what do they talk about during this all hands meeting? They come away from the meeting with a list of like 30 different things of behavior that needs to stop before they begin, filming and continuing the second half of the movie. Here are some of the behaviors that they say need to be stopped. No more showing nude images or videos of women, including the producer's wife, Mr. Heath, to Blake Lively and her employees. No more mention of Justin's and Jamie's previous pornography addiction or Blake Lively's lack of pornography consumption, and no more mentioning this to other crew members. No more discussions to Blake or her employees about personal experiences with sex, including personal experiences of them fucking their wives, basically. No more mentions to Blake Lively or her employees of times that physical consent was not given in sexual acts. And this is referenced as a time where we find out later in the lawsuit, Justin Baldoni was talking to Blake Lively and being like, yeah, have there been moments where I had sex and like I didn't ask for consent? Yes. Have there been moments where she said no to sex, but I had sex with her anyway? Yes. But I'm a learned man and I'm a changed man. And now I know that that's bad and I stand up for it and blah, blah, blah. Imagine that, somebody just looking you in the eyes and being like, I've raped someone, but now I know what the definition of rape is. Grow up. It's this is going to sound so bad, but it's one thing to sexually abuse a woman, and it's another to fucking mansplain how you're evolved because you know that what you did was wrong. Like, for parody use only, if I ever see Justin Baldoni and all of this stuff is true, hand me a gun. Like, oh my God, that's just like heinous, you know? They also say no more descriptions of their genitalia to Blake Lively, no more jokes or comments made to Blake Lively about HR complaints, because apparently there would be different moments on set where Justin or this Jamie guy would say to the women on set, like, oh, you look sexy, or like give them a hug, or be like, you look hot. And when the women would be like I don't like that, they would joke and be like, oh, I must have missed the HR meeting, or like, oh, don't report me to HR. And they were making a lot of those jokes. No more inquiries by Justin to Blake to her trainer to disclose her weight. We're going to get into that later. No more mentions of Justin speaking to Blake Lively's dead father or talking about his religious beliefs. We'll get into that later, but this kind of makes sense for this type of character that it seems like Justin Baldoni is. He was trying to say that basically he could talk to Blake Lively's dead father and communicate with her. I don't even know how I would like characterize that? Is it creepy? Is it heinous? Is it I don't even know, because it's just so absolutely utterly bizarre and fucked up. Like, I don't even know what the category is for it. It's under the umbrella of wrong, but I don't know in what way, you know? There was an instant where Jamie and Justin had COVID and they came to the workplace, and Blake and her infant then got COVID because of that. So they put down rules about COVID, rules for having an intimacy coordinator be on set, no more personal, physical touching or sexual comments by Justin or Jamie to Blake Lively or any of the female employees or cast. No more improvised kissing. We're going to get to that later. Having a representative for Blake Lively on set at all times. That was something that was needed. This is something we're going to get into later, which is really creepy, and you hear about it a lot happening in Hollywood. They were saying all actors that participate with Blake Lively in intimate scenes or any scene where she's in any state of nudity must be classified as active working actors on set, not friends. Because in one of the scenes that Blake Lively did, Justin Baldoni hired his best friend to be a guy in the scene where Blake Lively was partially nude. And you hear of this all the time in Hollywood, like members of the entourage getting fake vanity titles so then that way they can get access to things like this, which is crazy. No more additional films of nudity. It seemed like Justin was trying to add in a lot of sexual scenes that weren't in the original script that had already been approved. We're going to get more into that later. No more entering Blake Lively's trailer while she's nude. This, I have to admit, this one made me giggle. No more private, multi-hour meetings in Blake Lively's trailer with Mr. Baldoni crying, with no outside Blake Lively appointed representative to monitor. Yeah, apparently he was like crying because he's man enough to cry about stuff. This also adds a little bit of more color to the type of person he is. No more pressing by Mr. Baldoni to sage any of Blake Lively's employees. So it's not enough that he's pretending to be a feminist and saying that he can speak to her dead father. He's also using sage because he's so evolved. He's man enough to use sage. Like, you know, more stipulations about different people having to be on set, a stunt double needed for some sex scenes, no more adding of the sex scenes, etc., etc. So they end up agreeing. Everybody signs it. They agree to all 30 of these stipulations, and the filming was back on. And I just want to note at this point, Blake Lively, she's basically an A-list actor. If she was not an A-list actor or actress, these points would not have been agreed on, full stop. They would not have said yes to all 30 of these things. If she was a B-list actress or below, she would have just had to deal with that on set. And you hear of this all the time, like Emilia Clarke in the first season of Game of Thrones. There were so many nude scenes added that she was really uncomfortable with, but she wasn't able to speak up or say anything about it. And of course, as the series goes on and Emilia Clarke as Daenerys, you know, her star rises, you notice that those scenes are less and less because she has more power now to say that she's not going to do it. So, you know, that instance of all of the stipulations being signed off on and then the movie continuing, I just thought to myself, I wonder how many times terms like that are brought up by an actress and they're just flat out denied because she's not as big of a star as Blake Lively is. So the next thing in this lawsuit that they talk about is the marketing plan for the movie. And this was something that I spoke about in my original episode about the It Ends With Us drama. I was really baffled by how they were marketing It Ends With Us to be so floral focused and uplifting and, you know, go bring your girlfriends to this movie, because they had already bungled it the first time. You know, when It Ends With Us came out as a book and Colleen Hoover, you know, she writes some smutty type of stuff. There was all of this backlash because a lot of girls picked it up thinking that it was going to be a sexy beach read. And all of a sudden, oh no, domestic violence at the beach, you know, when you're reading it. So a lot of people were like, you know, this book was marketed in such a way and I picked it up and there should have been trigger warnings or something that like told me what was going to go on. There was also a second bungling of this when Colleen Hoover did the nail polish collab with Olive and June, and people were like, you're trying to make It Ends With Us into like this girly nail polish, and it was a really serious topic. And then there was a fucking third bungling of it when Colleen Hoover almost put out an It Ends With Us coloring book, and people were like, this is about domestic violence. Do a coloring book about any of your other books, but not this one. And she ended up canceling and stopping the production of that coloring book. So, I found it crazy that they were very obviously, once again, going for the floral focus, even though 3 separate times the public did not react well to that. Well, it turns out, once again, it was an official on the book's plan to have the marketing of this movie, quote, focus more on Lily's strength and resilience as opposed to describing the film as a story about domestic violence, and to quote, avoid talking about this film in a way that makes it feel sad or heavy. It's a story of hope. And it is, kind of a story of hope, but it's also a film where you will feel sad and heavy about certain parts of it. How could you feel hopeful watching someone get hit across the face? There's moments of that in it. And when you try to like flat out deny all of it, which is in their marketing plan to everyone in the cast and crew, like this is how you talk about the movie when it comes time to talk about it. How wild is that? So was Blake Lively following the directions that she was given for the marketing plan? Yes, she was. Was the marketing plan insane and kind of a slap in the face to everyone who saw the movie or victims of domestic violence themselves? And also they had, a history playbook of people not liking this type of marketing for this story. And I guess they just continued to go away with it. Now, what's interesting is that in the days coming up to the film being released, Justin Baldoni, who previously was on Team Floral and like making bouquets and sticking to the marketing plan, he decided to make a pivot. And this is because the public was catching on that a lot of the cast and crew from the film had unfollowed him on social media and they weren't doing appearances with him in public. So literally, he knew that everybody was wondering why he was being unfollowed, and him and his team made a decision to pivot against the marketing plan that was given to them and try to go for some sort of hero edit and play the good guy role. So let's be clear, Justin Baldoni started talking about domestic violence in the film and, how survivor stories are so important only because people were getting suspicious of him. Here's a quote from the lawsuit. What the public also did not know was that this was the beginning of a multi-tiered plan that Mr. Baldoni and his team described as social manipulation designed to destroy Ms. Lively's reputation. That plan was backed by virtually unlimited resources. Wayfarer's co-founder, co-chairman, and leading financier is multi-billionaire Steve Sarowitz, who divulged at the film's New York premiere on August 6, 2024, that he was prepared to spend $100 million to ruin the lives of Ms. Lively and her family. So, in July 31st of this year, apparently their publicist recommended that Mr. Baldoni gets a crisis communications specialist named Melissa Nathan and hires her group. It's called TAG, the agency group PR. And they did fucking Johnny Depp. They did someone else who was like also a certified abuser. Basically, if you sign up with this, it's just such a red herring. Like if you sign up with this group, you're going to be in the guilty camp. So what did this group say that they were going to do? They delivered this proposal to Justin saying that we will do a full Reddit, full social accounts, complete takedowns. You will have a full social crisis team to engage with audiences in the right way, to start threads of theories and discussion, and this is the way to be fully 100% protected. We will create social fan engagement to go back and forth with any negative accounts. We will help to change the narrative and to stay on track. And all of this will most importantly be untraceable. So this is like this plan that they put together. And there's a quote here in the lawsuit that says, this plan went well beyond standard crisis PR. It included a practice known as astroturfing, which has been defined as the practice of publishing opinions or comments on the internet, in the media, etc., that appear to come from ordinary members of the public, but actually come from a particular company. And this got me all puffed up, because if you listened to our Patreon episode from maybe a year ago, all about bots. I think the name of the episode on Patreon is all about bots. This is what I've been saying. Anyone who says anything bad about me online is a bot. End of story. But really, when I did the research for that episode, it made me look at the internet in a completely new and different light, because bots are insidious and terrifying, and they're everywhere. If you're on the internet, half of what you interact with, no joke, half of it is probably all bot activity. The numbers are staggering. I've seen them on, at play on my own TikTok videos, in other TikTok videos, in YouTube comment sections. I made this video on TikTok about how, I think it was like a month before the election here in the States, Kamala Harris put out her plan for like Black men in America, and it had to do with crypto and weed stores and things like that. Whatever. I forget all the specifics of it. But I was watching this YouTuber, discuss her plan, and I was scrolling down into the comments, as you do, and I remember seeing a comment of someone who said something like, don't trust Kamala Harris. When she was in California, she was responsible for putting Black men in prison. She doesn't care about Black men. Vote Trump 2024 with like 4 exclamation marks after it. And I remember that comment because certain words were capitalized, others weren't, etc. I keep scrolling through the comments and I see that exact fucking comment, capitalization for capitalization, the same 4 exclamation marks at the end of the sentence, word for word, character for character, further down in the comment section. I keep scrolling. I see it again. I see it again. I see it again. And all of these accounts that are posting the comment, it's a mom with her 2 babies as the profile picture. It's a man with his hat on backwards. It's a landscape. It looks like normal people. It's obviously, a Trump team or someone on that side astroturfing in the comments. And if I hadn't kept scrolling and seeing the same comment, I might think, oh my God, maybe that's a good point. This is someone saying it. Maybe I should think about that. We're so easily manipulated because we're such herd mentality creatures. There was that famous psychological study that was done. I forget the name of it. It was something stupid where they drew a line on a piece of paper and it was with red marker, and everybody's like, yeah, that's a red marker, blah, blah, blah. And only one person in the study is a real human. Everyone else is in on it, basically. And then the next time they draw a red line on a piece of paper, everyone except for the real person says, oh, that's a blue line on a piece of paper. And then because of just the herd mentality and wanting to conform, this thing that we have in us so badly, every single time the individual, whatever the fuck you call it, the control or whoever was being studied, they would lie and they would be like, yeah, I see a blue line too, for sure. It's a blue line. And this is what makes astroturfing so incredibly powerful, because, and I've seen it myself, every time I post, a hot take video on TikTok and everybody wants to kill me, I'm like, maybe I should change my opinion because I don't want everyone to be mad at me. Are they mad at you? Or are they bots? Okay. It's just something that you have to think about in this year of 2024, almost 2025. And I think what's scary is, you see this for a lot of creators, like they have opinions, and then as they start to get flack for them online, they start to water down their opinions. And it's really a muscle you have to flex to keep that authentic idea of what you believe, staying strong in it. But I think it's almost even scarier for the lurkers because we learn from what we see. So if I watch a YouTube video and I see that person getting flamed in the comments for what they said, even though I'm not making content, I'll be like, ooh, you know what? That thing they said that I agreed with, but no one in the comments is agreeing with, I should probably never say that in public. I got to keep that to myself. That's a dangerous thing to say because nobody agrees with it. They could be fake. They could be a PR team. This could be astroturfing online, like in real time. And this is something I said in my Patreon episode after the election. It's just because I'm passionate about it. We need to take bots so fucking seriously. Like, I think that if there's 5 problems in the world right now, in the modern day world, bots absolutely crack the top 5. They influence public opinion. They're influencing you with Amazon reviews, because something we talked about in that episode is not only will bots go in, let's say you're looking for a flashlight on Amazon, not only will people hire bots to go say, oh, this brand's flashlight, 5 stars, it's the best. They will also take their bots and go over to other flashlight brands and give them a 1 star and say, it's defective, it doesn't work, all of this stuff. And that was really crazy to me, because I think we live in this world where we know that a lot of 5-star reviews could be fake. So usually I tend to read the negative ones and trust those. Those negative ones are also fake. So they influence what you buy, how you spend your money, who your president is. Bots really are this big number 1 issue. And it's not even, I wouldn't even classify it as propaganda anymore. It's now standard practice. Because if you're not doing it, you're falling behind. And make no mistake about that. If you're a business and you're not astroturfing in some way, you're falling behind other companies. If you're a celebrity and you haven't hired a team to have bots fighting for you on Twitter and make your own fake Stan accounts, you're in last place behind all of your peers, because they're doing it. This is where we're at, right? Like, this is the new reality. So I'm going to stop cosplaying as Alex Jones and we'll get back into the lawsuit, but I just feel very passionately about this. And I know a lot of influencers who do it too, okay? Okay, so let's get back into this lawsuit here. We have text evidence between Justin and his PR folks, and the texts in between them are crazy, because you really see exactly what his desire is fully spelled out. So when he first hired the PR folks, we get some messages between him and them where he's like, I'm a little bit pissed off. You guys said that you were going to be really aggressive, and I feel like this plan isn't aggressive enough to protect me. He said, quote, I'm not in love with the document they sent. I'm not sure I'm feeling the protection that I felt on the call, basically saying that he wants them to go a lot harder. So then the PR people reached out to him, and they were also texting each other, basically saying, Justin wants to feel like, quote, Ms. Lively can be buried. And these PR people were saying to each other, yeah, of course, like, we're going to do that, but we can't say it in writing. We can't write, we will destroy her. Imagine if a document saying all of the things that he wants ends up in the wrong hands. So then, one of the PR people said, quote, we can bury anyone, but I can't write that to him. So it's interesting to see these PR people talking amongst themselves, because they're basically saying, hi, Justin, you little novice who's new to all of this evil PR shit. We will kill Blake Lively for you, but we're smart and we do this for a living. So what we talk about on our phone call is all of the intense details about what we're going to do to her. But the written stuff we send over to you that could get released to the public one day, that needs to be a little bit more above the board. And that I find really insidious. Like, what did they talk about on that phone call? Because we do now, that document is now in the quote unquote wrong hands, because Blake Lively has it. And they're aggressive about what they're going to do to her with this kind of smear campaign. So for Justin to say in a text message, this campaign you sent over, that don't impress me much. Like what we talked about on the phone call was a lot better. They must have been really fucking spewing evil on that phone call, So a few days later, Justin, it sounds like he kind of wants to moonlight as a PR person, because he's getting very involved in what they're doing. He finds a screenshot on, X, Twitter, whatever, of a moment of a thread where they're saying that, like, Hailey Bieber is a mean girl. Here's a thread of all of the mean girl things she's done over the years. And fucking man enough, Justin Baldoni takes a screenshot of that thread and texts it over to his PR people being like, this is what we would need, something just like this. And the PR person responds and she's like, totally, like, we just discussed doing something like this last night for social and digital. We're going to focus on Reddit, TikTok, and Instagram, blah, blah, blah. Now, what we also find out is that it wasn't just these PR people. They also retained subcontractors whose entire purpose is to just astroturf and do shit like this. So who they hired specifically was this Texas-based contractor named Jed Wallace. And he uses this digital army all across the country from New York to LA, and they create, seed, and promote content that appears to be authentic on social media platforms and internet chat forums, aka Reddit. So what would happen is that Justin Baldoni and his team would feed pieces of information to this Jet Wallace contractor, and then they would create, plant, amplify, and boost all of this content, quote, designed to eviscerate Ms. Lively's credibility. And then, of course, like I said with the Amazon reviews, it's not just the 5 stars that are fake, it's also the 1 stars. So they would do all of this content about how Blake Lively, sucks donkey dick, and then all of this content about how Justin Baldoni has never sucked donkey dick in his life, basically. So they're going at it from both ends. And you just see it's all spelled out in these text messages, Here's one from someone on the PR team. Hi team, so far incredibly limited pickup on Daily Mail or Page 6. We'll continue to keep an eye out and send pieces as needed, but so far it's been steady coverage on pure speculation. We've also started to see a shift on social, largely due to Jed, the contractor, and his team's efforts to shift the narrative towards shining a spotlight on Blake and Ryan. Again, we'll continue to send links and screenshots, but wanted to send an update. And what's really funny is that these 2 PR ladies are talking to each other. And they're saying, quote, the majority of socials are so pro-Justin, and I don't even agree with half of them, LOL. It's giving evil, but it's also kind of funny because when you and your coworker just kind of keep it real in the text messages, they probably never thought that this would get out to the public. We also have way more screenshots of the PR people talking amongst themselves and just saying between themselves, damn, we're doing a good job, because honestly, everyone on the It Ends With Us set found him so creepy. He's really in a pickle. He should be way more grateful to us because this is a really bad situation we're getting him out of. They even say at one point, oh my God, everything's going so well. There were 4 people who made HR violations and we got all 4 of them to stand down. It's just wild to read such evil totally spelled out. You know what I mean? They really worked a lot with the Daily Mail. So they're surfacing all of these Daily Mail articles about how Hollywood's golden Hollywood actress, her image, Blake Lively, it's gone for good. And they're sharing around the article and being wow, you really outdid yourself with that piece. And the other guy's yeah, that's why you hired me. I'm the best, blah, blah, blah. So then the lawsuit gets to something that really boils my blood. And this is about how Justin Baldoni and this Jamie Heath guy, underneath their company, Wayfair, they, of course, have the Man Enough podcast, which apparently they co-host. And they use their company and this podcast as a, oh my God, the words coming out of my mouth, it feels like I'm allergic to them or something. They use this company and they platform them as a male feminist platform that explores gender roles, dismantles toxic masculinity, and creates a safer and judgment-free society for women. Now, what I'm about to say is, parody and satirical. Let's kill them. That is so insane to me, because we're about to get into all of the sexual harassment claims. I mean, you already heard some of them with that 30 point thing that they had at the all hands meeting being you can't show me your dick anymore. You can't talk about your dick anymore. All of this stuff. And these 2 jagoffs are we are male feminists. I can't even, what would that be? A lion having a podcast for gazelles to listen to or something? At this point, I don't know who would be on the list of men that I trust. My boyfriend would be on there, and I think Conan O'Brien would be on there. I love Conan O'Brien. I'll be so on the verge if anything ever comes out about him, and that's it. I think my father. So that's 3 people. And at this point too, sorry, not to be such a man hater, but at this point, if as a woman, I'm just about to get a little bit hot here, okay? As a woman, if you trust men, you're kind of being stupid at this point. No shade, but like you're kind of being stupid. It's just like there's enough evidence in this world that like men honestly like assumed guilty until I find out that you're innocent. Like I just think as a woman, like, and this is coming from a purely logical, analytical, empirical evidence standpoint, none of my fucking emotions or my period in it. If you just trust men and take them at their word, I feel like that's the danger. You have to operate in a different mentality because it is just so insidious. And I talk about this all the time, probably too much to my boyfriend, but I'm just like, what's going on with men? You know, like you guys are some sort of different species. Like the things that we're going to get into and the things that Justin Baldoni and this Janie Heath guy did on set, and then to go on a podcast in a microphone and be like, here's all the ways I stand up to women. It's like evil in a way that I can't even really wrap my head around. And I find it so crazy when people are like, women are gold diggers. Okay. Yeah, they want safety and protection. So like that's where the gold digging, you know, ability comes from. Oh my God, they want a nice bag. They want to go to the spa. Like the things that men want to do, like their evil versus women's evil, it is in a completely different stratosphere. It's just so crazy to me. I feel fine saying that because no men listen to this podcast. For the most part. Hashtag not all men, not you, not anyone who's nice, like whatever. Okay, so let's get into the specific sexual harassment claims because they're pretty wild, okay? So things that were happening before that all hands meeting. Justin was improvising a lot of physical intimacy that hadn't been rehearsed or choreographed or discussed with Blake Lively. So he would be like biting and like sucking on her lips during scenes. He would improvise a lot of different kisses on each takes. And then he would also insist on shooting the full scene over and over again, well beyond what's normally required for a typical movie. There was also a moment that they were filming a slow dance scene for a montage, and he didn't act in character as Ryle. He spoke to Blake Lively as himself. And there were moments where he dragged his lips from her ear and down her neck and said, "It smells so good." And when she kind of objected to that afterwards, he responded by saying, "I'm not even attracted to you." You have to laugh. Like, it's just so incel, like as a complete definition, you know, it's just like so wild. Now, what I will say is, and I'm not saying this sticking up for him, you know, what he's doing is obviously completely wrong, full stop. But I am curious, how do you do a sex scene or a kissing scene? Because you probably do have to do multiple takes. And I'm sure there's no way that every take can be the same. But it sounds based off of this that there is a little bit of choreography to it, you know, like tilt your head this way and then that way and blah, blah, blah. But things happen, right? I remember even there was that clip of Bowen Yang apologizing to Ariana Grande because for one of their kisses on SNL, he did a little bit too much tongue. And she was like, yeah, it kind of was too much tongue. So even the gay men do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just crazy that like, I have heard so many Hollywood stories, you know, allegedly Jennifer Lawrence said that Timothée Chalamet was also like a very sloppy kisser. In all of the research I've done, I think we've done over, if you include Patreon, like 400 episodes at this point. Never once have I ever heard a man on set being like, the woman was like sticking her tongue in my mouth. It's just always the other way around. Once again, like I'm not trying to be a hater. I'm just literally using empirical evidence. Like this is data that we have in front of us. It's just wild. Okay. After Blake Lively signed onto the movie, and she did so based off of a draft of the script, then Justin would add in all of these extra graphic scenes after she signed on, including a scene where Blake was supposed to orgasm on camera. And when she objected to this, he insisted that they needed to be added because he was making the film through the female gaze. Like, oh my God, like veins are going to pop out of my head. And then he agreed to remove some of those scenes, but he made a last-ditch attempt to keep a scene in where the couple orgasmed together on their wedding night. And he said it was important to him because he and his partner climax simultaneously during intercourse. And then he asked Blake Lively, "Do you and your husband climax at the same time during intercourse?" And Blake Lively found that invasive and didn't want to discuss it. So first of all, Justin Baldoni's wife is lying to him. There's no way, I don't care if your compatibility sexually is off the charts. There is no way that you are coming together at the same time every time. Your wife is lying to you and you're too stupid to realize it. Like, there are moments where you can come together at the same time. It's not going to be every time, and usually it's a few seconds apart. Your wife is lying to you and you're stupid. There's no way that you guys are coming together. Oh no. Sometimes I listen back to these episodes and I'm like, Shannon, you need to calm the fuck down and like be a little bit more palatable. So I'm going to try and calm down a little bit, but that also is my legitimate opinion on it. Okay, let's continue. More of the stuff in the lawsuit. So on the day of shooting the scene where Blake Lively's character gives birth, Justin and Jamie suddenly started to pressure Blake Lively to simulate full nudity, even though there wasn't a mention of nudity in the script. And Justin started insisting to Blake that women give birth naked and that his wife had ripped her clothes off during labor. He claimed it was not normal for women to remain in their hospital gowns while giving birth. Okay. That is just... I'm like so like at a loss for words. Like, it's one thing to like mansplain a woman's orgasm, right? Which it's a vastly different thing than a male orgasm. But you could say at the very least, men and women both orgasm. Men, for the most part, okay, right? I'm not going to get into stuff like that. I'm just talking about this Justin Baldoni situation. Justin Baldoni has never given birth, and he never will give birth. Justin Baldoni can't, like, to say to Blake Lively, who has had 4 fucking children, one of them quite recently during this movie, to explain to her how women always get naked when they give birth. What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, it's crazy. So then Blake Lively got even more freaked out when Justin introduced his best friend to play the role of the OBGYN. Normally that role, right, would be filled by a local actor or someone. And he picked his friend for that role, where his friend's face and hands were going to be in close proximity to her nearly nude genitals for a birth scene. And she, of course, was upset by that. So then during this birth scene, Jamie Heath approaches Blake Lively and her assistant on set, and he starts playing a video of a fully nude woman with her legs spread open. And Blake thought that he was showing her porn and was like, knock it off. He said, oh, no, it's good. This video is a video of my wife giving birth. So Blake Lively is like, does your wife know that you're sharing this video? And he says, quote, she isn't weird about this stuff. So Blake Lively and her assistant excused themselves, and they were like, we can't believe he just showed us a video of his nude wife giving birth. There was other moments too where Justin added this scene to the film where the underage version of Blake Lively's character Lily loses her virginity, right? So in the book and the original script for the film, there's no sex scene. There's just details about the moment so you can kind of imagine what happened. But Justin wrote in this sex scene, including a lot of dialogue between, the younger actors, and a simulated sex scene that Justin filmed, and then he included in his initial cut of the film. I don't think it made it to the final version, but it was a close-up of young Lily's face with a gasp at the moment of penetration. And apparently after that scene was shot and Justin called cut, he walked over to the actors and he said, I know I'm not supposed to say this, but that was hot. And then he said, did you two practice this before? There's another moment too, this is what I talked about earlier, where there was a car ride with Blake Lively, her assistant, and her driver, and Justin. And Justin claimed to Blake that he had been sexually abused by a former girlfriend. I think this is something that he shared on his Man Enough podcast. And then at the end of the story, he said like, oh, this caused me to re-examine my past. Did I always ask for consent? No. Did I always listen when they said no? No. And then he claimed that this was an example of how we all have things that we can learn and grow from. And she was like, okay, you just told me that you coerced someone into sex. And then apparently when she left the car, her driver said, I don't think you should ever be alone with him going forward. This was another instance. I mean, there's just so many instances. I didn't even pull all of them. There's so many. Justin and Jamie on the first day of production described their past sexual relationships to Blake Lively, including that one of them used to hook up with a woman that Justin said wasn't the one for him. So he like passed that woman along to Jamie Heath, and then he got together with her. And she, found that disrespectful and disturbing. And that's crazy because there's so many blind items of this happening in Hollywood so much. Also just in like the, like level down from celebrity, like the big to-do influencer sphere. I don't want to say the phrase like, I don't know, people get like passed around, but I think they would talk about that in Entourage where it's like the main guy hooks up with a girl and then, lets members of his entourage have sex with her and things like that. People talked about that a lot with Leonardo DiCaprio, that people around him, like Tobey Maguire, would like, I don't want to say get his sloppy seconds. I can't think of a more respectful thing to say because it's just a disrespectful act. But there's been rumors of that happening in Hollywood all the time. And here we have an alleged quote of even man enough Justin Baldoni doing it. Like, moments where Justin would refer to women in the workplace as sexy. And when they would express discomfort, he would deflect it or try to pass it off. There was a moment that a female cast member wore leather pants when she showed up to the workplace, and he said that she looked sexy when she arrived to set. And then rather than apologizing, he brushed it off by saying, I can say that because my wife is here today. He's kind of giving like the type of man who's like in an open relationship. So he thinks that he's evolved, but rather than, I don't know, like first of all, he's obviously not a feminist, but I think he's the type of man to talk about how like biologically, like my seed needs to be spread. And like, it's okay that I'm a deviant pervert because I'm open and honest and authentic about it. And most men are deviant perverts, but I'm at least, being open and having communication about how I want to see you naked. It's like this weird therapy speak where it's like, I'm being candid and raw. I'm being really vulnerable about how you're giving me a boner right now and I masturbated to you. And me saying that is me being vulnerable. And it's like, fuck all the way off. Like, God, the way that therapy speak is just like, ugh. There was a moment where Blake Lively came to set wearing a low-cut dress so that way she could breastfeed, and she had it covered up with a coat. And when her jacket briefly popped open to reveal the dress, Justin commented on how much he liked her outfit, saying that he wanted to see her onesie under the coat, saying, quote, I think you look sexy. And when she said, quote, that's not what I'm going for, he bristled and said, I'm sorry, hot. And then she said, not that either. And then he responded sarcastically, I guess I missed the HR meeting. There's talk of a lot of other cast members also lodging sexual harassment complaints about him and his gross and unwanted comments and stuff like that. There was a lot of moments where he would also objectify her as a sex object, where he would go out of his way to message criticisms of her age and weight, obviously things that you cannot change while you're filming. So there was that moment, remember, in the original statement where it was like, no more Justin crying in my dressing room for hours. And there was a moment, you can tell that he's so online, because remember when these paparazzi photos came out of Blake Lively filming on set and everyone was like, her clothes are gross and she looks ugly. Like that was just what people were saying online, right? He saw those comments online and went to her dressing room and cried, saying that everyone was saying that she looked old and unattractive based on paparazzi photos from the set. And she was like, well, I think it should look like authentic to the scenes. Like maybe the photos look one way, but this was a scene where like I was just abused by my fictional husband. So like it's okay that I look that way. And he was like really upset by it. So then Blake Lively tries to have a meeting with this Jamie Heath guy to talk about how she's feeling uncomfortable with Justin's behavior. So this Jamie Heath guy, shows up unannounced at her hair and makeup trailer while she was topless and having body makeup removed by makeup artists. So she's like, hey, I'm almost done. We can speak once I'm done with this. And he was like, if we can't speak right now, then there's going to be no meeting. So she's like, okay, we can speak, but can you keep your back turned? And a few minutes into the conversation, he turned around and was staring directly at her while she was topless. When she called him out, Mr. Heath brushed it off as a habit of wanting to look at a person while speaking to them. It says that she and her hair and makeup artist were all deeply disturbed by this interaction on just the second day of filming. something about that just in my butt and in my gut. I can see that happening. The defensiveness. Oh, I just want to, I like to make eye contact when I'm, talking to people. Oh, it's so annoying because he's playing it off as I have good etiquette. I like to look at people when I talk to them. You know what trumps that rule of etiquette? Not looking at someone when they're fucking goddamn naked. It's just so like the really frustrating thing is I don't know if I can call it gaslighting or something, but it's this insidious thing of like, I'm always taking the high road here. If you're going to be a deviant pervert, just at least own it. What's even worse is that you're trying to play the hero. You're trying to play the well-mannered guy. Like, oh my God, like, ugh. Now, we also get into when all of this stuff was going on, there were rumors about fat shaming, that, Justin was fat shaming Blake Lively. And when they started filming, it was less than 4 months after she gave birth to her fourth child, So apparently, Justin had secretly called her fitness trainer without her knowledge or permission and implied that he wanted her to lose weight in 2 weeks because he was concerned about having to pick her up in a scene for the movie, blah, blah, blah. But apparently, there wasn't that scene wasn't even in the movie. So he was just using that as an excuse to be like, hey, you got to get her to lose weight more quickly. There was a moment when Blake Lively caught strep throat and Justin offered as a gift to connect her with an expert that he had on retainer that would help her with probiotics and a way to get over strep. So when she went to go fill out the privacy forms to meet with this person, she saw that this person actually wasn't an expert in probiotics. They were a weight loss specialist. So once again, she felt shamed in that way. They also talk about how they brought COVID on set and shit like that. So anyway, onto the marketing of the film and the shift of that. This is really crazy because when all of the cast members chose to appear in public separately from Justin because of his onset behavior, he got really concerned that the public would, quote, discover that something is much bigger under the surface. So he chose to pivot away from the official film's marketing plan. And then that would explain his absence from the rest of the cast because he wanted to talk about female trauma rather than female triumph. So apparently he changed his Instagram profile, he canceled all of these lighthearted social media posts that he had planned, and he instructed his team to look for survivors' reactions and support, all in an effort to quickly shift his own public narrative to focus fully on survivors and domestic organizations. And what's really crazy is that we have messages of him reaching out to his PR people and saying, let's change my privacy settings on Instagram and have it so that way people can send me DMs. And then you guys can go through my DMs and find different victims who are sharing their stories with me that they DM'd. And then we can highlight those victims' stories as things that people are writing into me. And even his own evil PR team was like, we do not recommend using private DMs as content. That seems a little bit too far. Like, when Johnny Depp's PR team is telling you that your ideas are too evil, it's like, that's when you take a moment to step back, He even proposed to his PR team that they should share this video of a woman's birth moment, and his team talked him out of it. They said it would be perceived as weird and it was too intimate. Yeah, of course it's weird. Then what's interesting, Ryan Reynolds blocked Justin on Instagram. Okay. And I got to say, I'm a little bit puffed up because that's what I said in my original episode. I was like, a lot of times when two celebrities unfollow each other, people think, oh, they both mutually unfollowed each other. If both people unfollow each other at the same time, do you want to know what usually happened instead? One person blocked the other. That's what causes an immediate unfollowing of both accounts. Usually when someone unfollows someone, it takes you a couple days to realize it, So anyway, that's just food for thought. So Ryan Reynolds blocking Justin Baldoni really scared the shit out of him. And he was like, we need to have a plan for if Blake Lively blocks me. And they came up with like a little bit of a plan and things like that. Now, another evil thing that Justin Baldoni, I mean, honestly, he's very creative with this brainstorming. He proposed, quote, an offensive move showing my neurodivergence and some of the attributes that come with it because it could explain that, quote, anything I've been accused of was social awkwardness and impulsive speech. He wanted to do the Elon Musk spin of you being an evil piece of shit. And then you're like, but I'm neurodivergent. And like, that's all it is. Despite the fact that neurodivergent people, like, I just hate that so much because then it causes this idea of like anyone who's autistic or has ADD, I guess sometimes they just sexually abuse and they can't help it because it's a symptom of neurodivergency. Like, oh my God, can we knock it off with that? That's such a sinister thing for him to try and do, to be like, and I think he said before that he has ADHD or something. Please. So wild. So then we get a little bit into the money part of it, and I'm money hungry, I wanted to know what was going on here. How much does it cost to hire a firm like this? So these were the two quotes that they gave to him for cost to use the PR firm. Quote 1 was $175,000, and this is for a 3 to 4 month period, and it includes website to discuss, full Reddit, full social account takedowns, a full social crisis team on hand for anything, engaging with audiences in the right way, starting threads of theories, and this is the way to be fully 100% protected. Or he could do option 2, and that quote is $25,000 per month for a minimum of 3 months, so a total of $75,000, and it will seed the same as above. This will be for creation of social fan engagement to go back and forth with any negative accounts, helping to change narrative and stay on track. All of this will most importantly be untraceable. There's a lot more to both of these quotes, but it's easier to discuss via the phone in terms of capabilities and what I have personally experienced in and out of crisis scenarios. So now, we're continuing with this theme of whatever they're talking about on the phone is way more evil. You know what I mean? Then, this is where it gets real juicy. They also put together plans of what they will do when Blake goes public with all of this, which is exactly right now. Okay. So these are their ideas of what they would do when Blake comes forward with all of this. They say, there are several potential scenarios at play here that we should be expected for should Ms. Lively and her team make grievances public. So one of the things they wanted to do was misleading messaging that production members lost their jobs because of Blake Lively's takeover and insistence on being involved. The second idea was that spreading this rumor that Blake Lively involved her husband to create an imbalance of power between her and Mr. Baldoni. The third was to really harp on the fact that Blake Lively has a less than favorable reputation in the industry. And the fourth is that Blake Lively had a clear, likely motive to bully her way into buying the rights for It Starts With Us, which is the sequel to the film. They also talk about how they could explore planting stories about the weaponization of feminism and how people in Blake Lively's circle, like Taylor Swift, have been accused of utilizing these tactics to bully people into getting what they want. Ooh, and isn't it interesting that I already saw some people saying that online? You have to almost wonder too, like, did they themselves come up with this idea of like, of course, Blake Lively's a mean girl. Look at who she hangs out with. Taylor Swift, not a surprise, always making herself the victim. Did they come up with that? Or were they reading the comments that us people were saying after their astroturfing and they were like, damn, that's a good point. Maybe we could do something with the Taylor Swift angle. It's very interesting. Now, I will say, I do think Blake Lively is hard to work with. I've heard that from a lot of people over the years, but it's crazy how they just put it together so methodically, There's also different text messages from Jed, this independent contractor, quote, "We are crushing it on Reddit. I have heard from multiple people that if you want to astroturf, Reddit is the easiest way to do it. And one of the ways they do it is what I'm always interested in is going into a thread and sorting by controversial or going to the very bottom. If there is just, let's say that there's a thread about, Selena Gomez. And people are like, yeah, Selena Gomez, blah, blah, blah. The top comment has maybe like 40 upvotes. If you go down to the very bottom where if, if like a sentence or a post, a comment, whatever, if a comment has like a bunch of downvotes, it'll be hidden, but you can press that little plus sign next to it to open it up. And there have been certain Reddit threads where I'm on and it'll be like, oh, Selena Gomez like sucks, like blah, 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 whatever. And then with 90 different downvotes will be a comment at the bottom being like, I actually think Selena Gomez is really nice, blah, blah, blah. 90 downvotes on that comment. That's when you know astroturfing is happening. You know what I mean? Like these are like certain things that you can kind of go and look for. Oh, I remember this too. There was an old podcast episode I did where I was talking about how Kevin Spacey is defo astroturfing and stuff like that. Because I remember there was 1 month, it was like 2 years ago maybe, where 3 separate accusers of Kevin Spacey, sexual abuse accusers, all died in the same month. And everybody was like, did he have them killed? Like, that's insane. And there were all of these comments from people on Reddit being like, it's actually not that crazy. Like, stop being a conspiracy theorist, like blah, blah, blah. No, it is crazy. It is crazy. And how about we start with this? Just to have 3 people who have accused you of sexual abuse and assault, full stop, that's crazy on its own. And then the fact that all 3 of them died within the same month before the trial was set to happen, it is fucking crazy. It is crazy. You know what I mean? Like, it's just so aggravating because a lot of people look at Reddit and they see these upvotes and downvotes as, you know, society signing off on something. And a lot of it is astroturfing, which is just wild. Then there was this really insidious moment where in August of this year, there was a screenshot of a post that a woman made on social media saying that Justin was the creator of some show called My Last Days, and it talks about the struggles of individuals who are facing terminal illnesses. And they were saying they had a really bad experience with it because her friend who is battling this serious illness, Justin wanted to like do a little piece on her life. So she never spoke ill of him, but she got the vibe that something was really wrong because Justin weaponizes this therapy language. He presents himself to be thoughtful and supportive, but his actions were totally different. It's all a facade. None of the proceeds from the show went to benefit the individuals that he was profiling. And then she grew up in this like ritzy ditzy rich community, but he pretended on the show that it was this small and impoverished town and all of this stuff. And then once the show aired, Justin took his profits and vanished, leaving nothing but a sense of exploitation in his wake. So she posted that on socials. The PR people found it and they were like, oh, send this to Jed. Quote, we've flagged this to Jed and his team for more serious action on the social side. So here's someone whose friend was taken advantage of by Justin Baldoni, and they just send that post over to Jed, probably barrage it with a bunch of hate messages. She gets nervous and takes it down, and they go, great, cross that off our list. You know, it's such a pit in the stomach to think about all of this stuff. There was another message between the PR people here saying, you know, there's this girl online. She's claiming that Justin invited her up to his hotel room years ago. I don't want to share the vid, but someone did a screen record and this is her account so you guys can look at it. You know, like, let's suppress this. Yeah, let's forward this over to Jed. Isn't that crazy? And then they end on the lawsuit talking about his Man Enough podcast. And it just makes you want to vomit, you know? Here's a quote. In one episode of his show, Man Enough, Mr. Baldoni hosted a roundtable with really strong men, including Mr. Heath and others, in reaction to the Me Too movement, to, quote, collectively learn from each other, from experts, and hear firsthand from women, and try to figure out how we can be better allies in our responses and in our actions. In the episode, he questions the group, quote, who at this table has seen something and didn't say anything? I mean, objectification, harassment, and then not said anything. And he did a TED Talk in 2017 where he talks about how men are the problem because they created the glass ceiling, and if they want to be a part of the solution, then words are no longer enough. By his own account, he, quote, became a feminist fighting for gender equality so quickly that he hadn't even realized that that's what he was trying to do. He's said before that his activism starts in the mirror with an audience of one, that he feels a deep responsibility to tear down the walls of power and privilege, and he believes that the world needs men to show up, not in big ways, but in hundreds and thousands of little ways. And there's like all these different quotes that he said over the years, too, that just make you want to scream after hearing all of this, you know? Quote, men are going to have to start doing now and recognizing when they made women uncomfortable and didn't realize it. Are you confident enough to listen to the women in your life? And will you be man enough to stand up to other men when you hear locker room talk and when you hear stories of sexual harassment? It's just wild. It's wild, you know? And then there's these little sections of evidence at the end of the lawsuit that I found very interesting. This one was, interesting just because Hollywood is such a piece of shit. So there was a piece of evidence all about how to market the movie. And they talk about how to avoid talking about this film in any way that makes it feel sad or heavy. It's a story of hope. Avoid describing the film as a love story or a love triangle, describe it in this way. And then they have a section at the bottom that says, only if asked. Any questions about the story not being an authentic representation of domestic violence? Here's how you respond to it. You say that it's inspired by Colleen Hoover's, deeply personal story of growing up in Texas. And then they have a question too. What if you're asked, any questions about the lack of diversity in the cast? Here's how you're supposed to respond. We have such a wonderful cast who all bring something unique in telling this powerful story of one woman learning to take agency over her future, etc., and part of an incredible group of women, blah, blah, blah. So how to skirt around questions of domestic violence and lack of diversity in the cast. And this is all written up, And then the very last piece of evidence that we see is Justin Baldoni's team and the niche details of how to take down Blake Lively if she comes out with, this lawsuit and talking about what happened on set. And what's really interesting is one of their approaches, they bring other celebrities into it, right? So here we go, quote, our recommended approach would be to provide reporters who reach out for comment, should it be obvious that she's referring to you, with the appropriate background information to ensure that their stories are balanced and that the speculation can be turned to another one of the many people she's had issues working with, in parentheses, Leighton Meester, Anna Kendrick, Ben Affleck, etc. So they already have plans that if anyone asked them about it, be like, well, of course she's hard to work with. Just ask Ben Affleck. Just ask Anna Kendrick. They plan all this stuff out. Another quote, as a part of this, our team can also explore planting stories about the weaponization of feminism and how people in Blake Lively's circle, like Taylor Swift, have been accused of utilizing these tactics to bully into getting what they want. So yeah, isn't that wild? It's just wild to see it all laid out like this. Like, I feel like with the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard case, we saw a lot about bots and just how they were being used and manipulated and all of this content being put out online. But here we get a little bit of insight because we see the communication between Justin and the PR team and even the PR team with each other. They're like, yeah, this guy sucks, but man, are we doing a good job of hiding it. Fucking wild. And so many things now make sense. Like Ryan Reynolds being on set every day makes way more sense when the producer of the film is staring at Blake Lively's tits in her dressing room and refusing to turn around. You know what I mean? And then another thing that I will say is part of the reason why I think they knew that this was happening and they collected evidence and they waited to file the lawsuit is because they probably know other people who have done it. Because for someone who might not know about this, you're probably like, man, I feel like, am I so unlucky that everyone in the world is turning on me? But I bet Blake and Ryan were having dinners at home talking and saying, they're using that firm. A buddy of mine used that firm. I know exactly what they're doing. We just got to ride it out. He probably did the 3-month plan, because we know what plans they offer because maybe they've used PR agencies like this before. But how interesting is it that this is really going to blow the lid off of the next time, the next time something happens to someone, it's going to be very easy for people to say, well, are they doing the Amber Heard and the Blake Lively? Do we need to be more careful before we dogpile on someone? And it's interesting that they're doing it with two, white, blonde women and using the descriptors of, mean girl, and she's a bully, and she's manipulative, and she's calculating, and the ways that the public can be manipulated, like, would they use different stereotypes for women of different races if they're trying to bring them down. Oh, this Black actress, she's so aggressive and hard to work with. Like, we might be seeing things like that, or be more attuned to when it's happening, because it seems like these PR companies, they kind of list out everything bad, speculative that's happened with someone and how they can turn it into a fact. So this is pretty crazy. What will happen now? How will he respond? There's no way that he can use the original plan they had. Could you imagine a piece comes out and it's like, well, she has a bad relationship with Ben Affleck and Anna Kendrick. People will be like, no, no, no. We saw that that's your plan. You can't say that. So is he going to keep using them? Is he going to hire a different group? How do you respond? I feel like at this point, he's fucking buried. And I'm so excited to go and check his podcast reviews at the end of this to see, I don't know, like, does he have a bunch of 1 stars? There's no way he can keep doing the Man Enough podcast after something like this. But I feel like, just based off of the vibe of what I was getting from like his messages to the PR team, whatever move Justin does, I just predict it's going to be a big move. He's not just going to take this line down. He's going to try and go on the offensive in some way. And he's probably, if I had to predict things, just knowing how this normally goes, he's probably going to put out his own counter lawsuit. There'll be evidence in it. People are going to read his. There's going to be a recency bias, and people are going to say, actually, no, JK, we are on Justin's side again. And maybe it'll go to court, but this is going to fuck with both of them probably forever, Wow. So what can we learn from this? Anytime somebody leaves a mean comment, it's Justin Baldoni's PR team, and nobody hates you. It's just them astroturfing. But I think this is going to be very fascinating, and we'll see what happens and what he says. It ends with us in court. So let me know what you think about all of this. As always, we've got Patreon episodes, extra ones for you every week. You can head on over. We just did one about the aliens or the drones or the UAPs that have been over New Jersey for the past month, and all of the conspiracy theories and actual quotes and what's going on with that. And yeah. So I hope everyone has a very, very Merry Christmas. I hope everybody has a nice, relaxing time with their family. And in the meantime, I will be glued to my phone trying to see what Justin says next. And I will see you guys in the new year for a new episode of Fluently Forward. Bye, guys.